I used to be so angry that I would be angry for weeks at a time, and I used to be explosive. A lot of people in their growing up life have a lot of trauma associated with anger. They don't allow themselves to feel anger, or they have this explosive anger because of the experiences they had when they were young. There's a lot of people who have healing to do. I can tell where the energy is stuck in their body. Basically, their body kind of gives me information about what's going on in that area. And then between a combination of what I do with physically the body and what I do energetically in my mind, and then what I tell the person, I help that energy block to shift.
Sandra, thank you very much for joining me on Success Matters podcast. You are currently doing some work around, why do you explain to us what you currently do?
Now I do healing work that helps people who are primarily business owners when they have things they need to do and they're not doing them.
Okay,
I work with their beliefs and the things in their mind that hold them back from doing what they really need to do.
okay. But you actually, just before we start recording, you've got a degree in chemistry, much like myself. So you've got a scientific background. Uh,
Yep.
so when you think about back to those days when you were doing your science degree, science is very much based around logic, right? And it's based around a kind of an order of systems and processes and the like. But beliefs aren't based on that necessarily. So how did you make that transition, and what's the contrast you see in that?
So I went from graduating from college with a bachelor's in chemistry to moving into a place where I started doing acupressure and Reiki and started doing healing work.
Right.
And pretty quickly, I had to come to terms with that because there's a left brain logical that, wants everything to make sense and have scientific proof and all that stuff. And then this other part that says, well, I don't know how it works, but the truth is that it does work.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate in my relatively early 20s to be able to bridge that gap
Mhm.
and to be able to take the left brain logical and the right brain imaginative creative and be able to live in both worlds.
Okay.
And since then, I've been doing healing work. And part of how I take that science history and apply it to what I do now is it enables me to really help people understand things that are hard to understand.
Hmm. Okay.
So, for example, I like helping people understand what's going on in their body,
Mhm.
the physiology, the anatomy, and I can find ways because I understand I can relate to science. I find a way to help people understand this stuff that's kind of difficult to understand from their own perspective. So I'm able to explain things like, what happens when you drink water? That's chemistry. What happens when you have a broken bone or a damaged joint? How does your body like put that back together? That's mixing science and energy and healing and emotion. So I'm able to bring them all together.
Right.
So just like when I graduated from college and taking left brain logical and science and right brain energetic and being able to live in both, that's what I do all the time.
Did you always have an interest in what some might call alternative medicine, the sort of healing side of things?
Um, I just kind of stumbled into it, I'm
All
going to
right.
say. But because I did start off with that perspective, I never really went the whole like medical system route and have always tended to be more on the alternative side of health and healthcare.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned things like Reiki and acupressure. These are sometimes they get poo-pooed, right, by people but as you say, they kind of work, right? So what is it that actually makes them work?
What is it that makes them work? I'm not sure I have an answer to that question, but how I work with it
Yeah.
is I am able to perceive blocks and flow of the energy.
Right.
So, say I'm working on somebody like doing hands on body work,
Hmm.
I can tell where the energy is stuck in their body.
Right.
And then with what basically their body kind of gives me information
Hmm.
about what's going on in that area. And then between a combination of what I do with physically the body and what I do energetically in my mind, and then what I tell the person, I help that energy block to shift.
Right.
Do I know what's happening scientifically and physically? Maybe not. I can kind of make it up,
Yeah.
but what I do is I perceive what's going on with it energetically.
Hmm.
And I connect what's going on in their body, in their energy field, in their mind, and in their thoughts. I bring them all together.
Hmm.
So, for example, a lot of people have, tension in their neck and shoulders,
Yeah.
right? Issues that will show up there are like having too much responsibility, too much pressure, um, not being able to communicate, not being heard. So it's like seeing the energetics of the life issue, how it's showing up in the body and manifesting physically.
Hmm.
So to be able to take those things that are manifesting physically and help them to be able to shift without medications, without surgery, and empowering people to be able to help themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I really like. I like giving the control back to the person so they feel like they have something they can do to influence what's going on with these things in their body.
Okay. So how do you give control back? So say I've come to you and I'm complaining of I don't know, stiff shoulders. You kind of touched on that. So you look at me and you probably talk to me about like what's happening in my life and my world, as well as putting your hands onto my shoulders to feel that the energy flow. Once you've kind of done your treatment, what are those tools you're giving back to me that means I can handle that myself?
Let me give you an example. It's easiest to do it that way. Okay. So I worked with somebody, I'm in British Columbia, Canada.
Right.
Okay. And yesterday I worked with somebody on the East Coast
Hmm.
of the United States. Okay.
So you didn't see them. You were virtual like this.
We were on a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So there was no way I was getting hands on
Yeah.
with this person. Okay. So it winds up that she experiences migraines.
Okay.
I mean, what she was dealing with yesterday is the aftermath of COVID. Okay. So head congestion, low energy, brain fog, those kinds of things.
Hmm.
Okay. But I also wound up helping her deal with what to do when she feels a migraine coming on,
Right.
helping her make the connection between you have this energy in your head and you have this energy down lower in your spine. When you feel movement between the two, that enables the energy that's stuck in your head to go down and prevent the headache.
Right.
So we take somebody who has physical issues, physical symptoms,
Hmm.
and give them things that they can do to prevent the issue from being an issue in the future.
Right. Okay.
So this empowers the person to be able to help themselves.
Yeah. And when we opened, you talked about belief systems as well. So how do you change people's belief systems?
Part of it is just helping them be aware of it.
Right.
Okay. So being aware of, do you have limiting thoughts? For example, do you feel like you're stuck?
Mhm.
That's just part of it. But I also do neuro linguistic programming,
Yeah.
NLP, which helps the person to be able to release the stuff from the past that's holding those limitations in place
Hmm.
and showing up in situations, resistance in their current life.
Yeah. So using NLP techniques to help that person as well. Okay. That's interesting. I did NLP as well I'm an NLP practitioner probably about 10 years ago, and I use it more in a coaching kind of context rather than necessarily a healing context. But I can see how the two together can really make up a very powerful combination.
They all go together.
Mm. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
really can't separate them, right?
Yeah.
So it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Hmm.
It's definitely true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's so true. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So as you've gone through this journey in life, and you probably make an assumption here. When you did your degree, you had a particular path you were thinking you might be going down. You've discovered this new way of healing, and I think there's probably an element of um, skill's the wrong word. It's natural. It's a natural feeling for it that you have. It's a natural kind of like when within your fingertips, you can tell that there's something there. When you discover that, how did your whole perspective on success change?
My perspective on success really revolves around, is what I am doing in alignment with who I am,
Okay.
with what I believe in? Does it feel good to me? Does it feel right to me? So I was in coaching, business coaching programs, like even as early as a year ago, that were not in alignment with who I am.
Okay.
And I was trying to make myself do things that didn't fit me, and that I had beliefs that were blocking me as well. So to me, that's like lack of success.
Right.
And when I get those things more in alignment, then I am going to attract more opportunities that do work for me, and that there will be more of what we think of culturally as being success.
Mhm.
So, um, I'm in this phase of really building things now, but now that I have done so much healing myself, I've just done a lot of healing myself in the past couple of months. And okay, so now I am more in alignment myself and ready to receive more of these benefits and have more of what we materially think of in the world as being success.
Mhm. Okay. How in terms of that healing that you did, one of the things that I've noticed both within the work that I've done on myself and with other people is that quite often the people around you are not they're not necessarily in tune or aligned with what you yourself are now discovering as the new you. So did you have that in your own kind of world, and how did you handle that?
Fortunately, I didn't have to deal with that. Um, the people who I know are pretty much in alignment with me being able to do whatever it is I feel like I need to do,
Mhm.
and believing in energy already. Um, Not necessarily doing things as actively as I am, but there's a lot of allowance for me to be whatever it is I want to be in the world. So I didn't have that resistance. I consider myself fortunate in that.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. That's very, very helpful because that is one of the things that going back to the belief systems as well, quite often you find when you're working with someone's belief system or their identity, if you start to change their identity, then they really do w- almost worry, right? That how will other people now perceive me, those people who were my friends before, or the neighborhood, or whatever, to what it is now. And so, yeah, it's great that you didn't have to have that problem. Do you come across that though with some of your clients where that shift in identity is so important, but they're potentially holding back, and then that's manifesting in their body.
Yes, I mean, that's something I think that all people deal with at some level,
Mhm.
right? So, one of the things that I created is a concept I call the anger spectrum.
Right.
Anytime I am having any sort of uncomfortable thought or feeling, not necessarily just anger, I think of that as being on this anger spectrum.
Mhm.
So if I am worried, I am afraid, I am anxious, I am wondering, oh, what does this person think of me? Are they going to like me? Fear of rejection, or, procrastinating. Those are all uncomfortable thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And I think of them as being on this anger spectrum. And I am kind of on a mission to normalize the experience of anger because a lot of people in their growing up life have a lot of trauma associated with anger.
Hmm.
They don't allow themselves to feel anger, or they have this explosive anger because of the experiences they had when they were young, where anger got really distorted and all of this stuff got attached to it. There's a lot of people who have healing to do in those areas, and anger is one of those things that comes up so much in the healing work that you and I both do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that anger, it's interesting, right? Anger as a term, I'd never really thought because for me, it's not really a spectrum. It's either it's an on or off. It's kind of
Yes,
how I look at it. But actually, you're right. It's not on or off, right?
it's not on or off.
There's that build up to that explosion, but there's many steps towards that before you actually get to that explosion, which is quite often what I associate with anger, right? It's that kind of explosive element to it.
Yeah. So I support people in not letting it build up to the explosion.
Yeah.
For me, in my personal experience, I used to be so angry that I would be angry for weeks at a time. And I used to be explosive.
Right.
And what leads to that is there is something happening and I can't express it. And so I stuff it.
Mhm.
And then something happens and I can't express it and I stuff it. And then I stuff. And there's so much in there that I think of it as being like this big, huge, massive pile of kindling.
Yeah.
And something happens and triggers it, sets off the kindling. I was like, that's where the explosion happens, right? When you have a different relationship with not just anger itself, not just rage, but the whole spectrum of emotions, and you learn how to heal along the way, communicate and express along the way so that I'm not stuffing
Yeah.
and it's not building up to then explode. So that this experience of explosive anger doesn't have to occur.
Mm.
Because the truth is that anger is a really important emotion to have. Where it becomes a problem is when it gets distorted, when it explodes like that. But if we didn't have anger, then nothing would ever change.
Mm.
Because important things that need to be done wouldn't be done.
Yeah.
Because it takes getting upset enough to get action happening, to change things. So we actually need anger. Anger is important.
Mm.
What's good is to be able to feel it, communicate it in a balanced way. Is there anything left? And then let it go.
Yeah. That's so true, so important, isn't it? It's part of that because you only get motion through the emotion, right? So that emotion needs
Mhm.
to be there for it to happen. And as you say, if you're not angry, maybe is a strong word, but if you're not feeling that something needs to change, no change is going to happen. So it's really really important. So Sandra, one thing I do is I ask a previous guest for a question for my next guest, and my last guest asked, "Why did you wait so long?" I don't know if you did wait so long based on our conversation, but let's see what you have to say.
Why did I wait so long?
Mm.
Well, so like decades ago, I bought like an in the box NLP training program
Okay.
and I didn't do it.
Right.
I didn't do anything with it, right? Why did I wait so long? I could have learned it then, but I think what I would have learned then um, doesn't have the refinement that what I learned now
Right.
does.
Mhm.
So I actually had an NLP certification from the fall, and then the program that I was just in like a month ago is like so much more
Yeah.
transformative, so much better results. So part of why I didn't do more with what I had with NLP before was because it wasn't time. I wasn't ready, or it wasn't the right method for me.
Yeah. Is that Do you think at the time you that is actually why you didn't do it, because you felt that it wasn't for you at that time, or was it something else that stopped you from actually doing it at that time?
I think it was mostly an issue that it wasn't an in-person program. It was a recorded
Okay.
program.
Mm.
And since then, I have come to realize that I do much better where there's an actual like person
Yeah.
and I am learning directly with a person or doing one-on-one work with somebody. I get so much more out of it than like, audio, video, which are great to have those available. But I find what works best for me is having accountability and actually interacting with a person.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that makes a world of difference when it comes to learning some new skills and learning some new things. And that's part of the podcast is, people can listen in and record, but actually in the conversation that I have with you right now, I'm learning a lot from that, and I learn from all of my guests from that single conversation. Do you have a question for my next guest?
Is there something special you do to connect with people?
There's something special you do to connect with people. Okay.
And let me tell you why I asked that question, because
Yeah.
I have realized that connection is the most important thing for me.
Hmm.
The most important value for me is connection and connecting with people. So I'm just curious and interested in the whole dynamics of connection and how people connect.
And what would you say you do to connect with people?
I am naturally, pretty shy,
Right.
pretty quiet, sit by the wall kind of a person.
Mhm.
And um, what I do is I actually go up and I start conversations, which is a little bit uncomfortable, or
Yeah.
it used to make me uncomfortable. Now it's just normal because I know that I appreciate connecting. And so I purposely start conversations.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's cool, right? And the first few times it's really hard, but after a while it's like, oh, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go sweet that person. They look interesting. Let me have a conversation with them.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good. Getting out of your comfort zone. So we're at the top of our time now, Sandra. Unfortunately, it's been a very fascinating conversation. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey. If people want to get in touch with you or to find out more about the work you do, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I have a free gift that they can go get,
Okay.
and they go to shinewithsandra.com/happy.
Shinewithsandra.com/happy. Okay.
And that gives them the Happy and Harmonious Relationships worksheet, and then my newsletter and all of that.
Right. Okay, cool. And otherwise, so sign up for that. And otherwise, go to your website, Sharing with Sandra.
Shinewithsandra.com/happy.
Okay. Great. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for taking part in Success Matters.
Thank you, Sanjay.
To find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.